Hey guys, it doesn't matter,
Ellen the Dream.
and this is a special edition episode of our podcast, Confessions of a Stan Cub Edition. And basically, we just wanted to kind of jump on, talk to you guys, and share some of our thoughts with you, and just kind of get on the same page, I guess. Obviously, a lot has been happening in the realm with Jesy and with Little Mix. We know that the DMs are real. We saw the live with Nicki Minaj. We don't like how everything happened and how it went down. We believe that both parties have a right to be upset about certain things, and that's both valid. Obviously, neither one was handled in the right way or like the most like effective, productive, respectful way.
A lot of it should have probably been done behind closed doors and not on the internet.
Yep. Yep. Pretty much all of it. um, that said, literally every person involved is human and is not always going to pick the best, most respectful, most private, most whatever efficient, productive way to handle a situation. That's just not how life works. And
Yeah.
we don't agree with what Nikki said and how she went about it. And, she really shouldn't have inserted herself at all. But at the end of the day, what Nicki Minaj does and says is not what Jesy Nelson does and says. So we're not going to blame Jesy for the things that Nikki does because Jessy's not responsible for Nicki Minaj.
Yeah.
We don't hold the other girls accountable for the things that their friends or acquaintances do, like Marcus, for example, with Jade. He's quite the character. um, but, we don't blame Jade for that or hold her responsible for his actions. He's an adult, he's responsible for himself. And it's not our place to be judging or controlling or anything like that, the relationships that the girls have in their personal lives. That's none of our fucking business.
Yeah, it really isn't though. Especially when we don't know all details or anything about them that is offline.
Yeah. And then ultimately, like the girls' friendship, it's just none of our business, and we don't intend to make it our business. We've been saying that for a really long time now. Friendship is part of Little Mix's kind of brand. And that's great. And it was really nice to enjoy it for the however many years where it was very kind of like pure and wholesome. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we're no longer invited into this friendship and into this relationship. And that's entirely their right. And we didn't have a right to be in it anyway. And we don't get any say in how it goes or what happens in it or whether it continues or how people feel about it. So it's just none of our damn business. And I'm fine with that.
They have to have boundaries somewhere, and if their boundary is what's happening right now, then that's fine.
That's absolutely fine. We have done a lot of reflection, a lot of research, a lot of listening the last few months. A lot longer than last few months, honestly. Uh, and we've kind of come to our decision about what we feel is right for us concerning Jesy. That doesn't mean that it's the right decision morally. It doesn't mean that it's the right decision objectively. It doesn't mean it's the right decision for everyone. But we can only do the research and the education and then make the best decision for us.
It also isn't a forever decision. Lots of stuff can happen between now and whenever. So,
Yeah, obviously, you know, people are allowed to change their minds.
yeah.
If new developments occur, we can decide that, our decision has changed. That is perfectly reasonable. People are allowed to change their minds. It happens all the goddamn time. And that applies for other people too. People are allowed to change their minds, and their changing of their minds could be one that disagrees with ours, and that's totally fine and valid. We've decided that the right decision for us right now is that we are still going to support Jesy, keep tabs on her, continue to do this edition of the podcast. We don't support everything she does the same way that we don't support everything Little Mix does, same way we don't support everything Ariana Grande does, Billie Eilish, a bunch of other celebrities and singers and kind of like pop culture icons that exist. The truth of the matter is that no one is ideologically pure or unproblematic. Everyone has a varying level, has problematic issues with different things. That's just how humans are. Like, it doesn't make it right, but it is how life works. And unless you were going to isolate yourself with literally nothing and no one to talk to or to consume and to interact with, you're going to have to deal with these things. That being said, you can absolutely choose where you draw your own boundaries. If you don't want to support Jesy and you don't forgive her, that's totally fine. That's totally valid. That's totally your decision. We are certainly not going to sit here and tell you that you can't do that. We are making the right decision for us. That does not mean it's the right decision for you. We're not going to get into discussions around just like kind of the problematic issues that don't involve us. As white people, culture appropriation, blackfishing, that's not for us to be offended about or to tell someone they have to be offended or they can't be offended. That's none of we get zero opinion in that. And we're not trying to sit here on a platform and try to have an opinion on it. That's absolutely not what we're trying to do. So I think that there's no point to us having discussions about it. That doesn't mean that we haven't done research. That doesn't mean that we privately haven't had discussions. That doesn't mean we haven't educated ourselves. It just means that it's not our place to be talking about it. We don't need to speak for Black people or people of color. And the best thing that we can do is just sit down and let those communities have the conversation that they need to have without us using our privilege to insert our opinion. So just because we are not talking about something to you guys does not mean that we are not handling it behind the scenes the way that we think is the right way to handle it. No one on this podcast is ever ignoring things like this and saying, who cares? This isn't important. Screw you. We are never doing that.
No.
But there is a thing that needs to happen where just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah.
To be honest, like, I'm not really sure exactly how we are going to handle, culture appropriation with Jesy in the future. I mean, if we're being like totally just blunt and honest with you guys, I expect it to happen often in her solo career. She's doing R&B music. Even without all of the other problematic factors, that alone was going to result in cultural appropriation. So I'm expecting it to be a recurring kind of problem in Jesy's solo career simply by way of the genre of music that she likes and that she wants to do. I don't think that we're going to suddenly stop having these issues with Jesy's solo career. It's not like one and done. I'm not entirely sure how we're going to handle that on the podcast yet, to be honest. We're going to kind of just like play it by ear. Right now, the way I handle it with Little Mix is that, we point it out, but we don't harp on it. We don't insert our opinions. We don't like do any of that. Ideally, that's how I would like to handle it with Jesy. I think it will depend on whether or not we feel safe doing so. Sometimes it feels like talking about this in relation to Jesy has a danger factor that it doesn't when we talk about it with other artists, specifically Little Mix with you guys, but also just in general. sometimes you guys ask us to speak about things and we tell you like, no, we'd rather not. We don't feel comfortable or safe doing so. I would love for us to be able to kind of be able to acknowledge when we see something problematic in Jesy's discography and be able to say like, yes, we recognize that, but we're moving on because it's not our place to have a discussion around it. I would like to be able to do that. Depending on how it goes, maybe we will be able to do that. Maybe it'll end up being something where we don't even acknowledge that in the podcast. Again, I want to point out to you guys, if that is what we're doing, it's not because we didn't see it. It's not because we didn't listen. It's not because we didn't hear people upset. It's because we don't feel safe even acknowledging it.
Yeah.
Again, just because it's not happening in front of you doesn't mean it's not happening at all. Again, like, I just want to really reinforce, like, if you don't support her like her, you don't have to click on these episodes. You don't have to watch these. You don't have to listen to them. And I would totally understand if our choice means that you don't want to support our channels or our videos that are Little Mix related or one of the other girls. That's totally your choice. If that's how you feel, that's totally fine. You don't have to pay attention to our content. In fact, I will tell you right now that next time one of our videos pops up on your home feed, if you click the little 3 dots, you can tell YouTube to stop recommending you our channel and we will just poof.
Poof.
We will just poof. So if you don't want to support us because of our decision, that's totally fine. I recommend that you use that feature so that you don't have to kind of constantly see our videos in your feed just because you like Little Mix and take us out of the algorithm. That's totally fine. That is absolutely fine. We understand that.
Yeah.
So just to address this really quickly, because I think there will be a lot of you who will say kind of, well, how could you choose to support her after everything that's happened? For us and our perspective, and this doesn't mean it's right. This is just, we're doing what we can with the knowledge we have, with what's right for us. Nothing has changed since the last time we discussed this, last time we addressed this on the podcast, rather. Boys was pretty much what I expected it to be. And I think that if people were paying attention, not the general public, but like if fans were paying attention, you probably also saw this coming. With the music genre that Jesy likes to do, cultural appropriation was a no-brainer. With her remaking the original video from Diddy, the problematic narrative that was happened and the stereotypes that get perpetuated was a no-brainer. They're in Diddy's video and they're not problematic in there because he's a black guy. Jesy's not. So when she does it as a remake, it is perpetuating racial stereotypes. We're not like immune to that. By immune to that, I mean like we're not blind to it. We do see it. Despite that happening, that's not actually a change in behavior or in attitude or anything like that. Jesy didn't, think up this narrative and decide to push it. She recreated a video that shouldn't be recreated by a white person. And again, I just want to point out, like, I'm not saying Diddy did something racist. It's fine because he is a black man. That is his culture. He can do that narrative with those kind of like elements of black culture in the video. There's nothing wrong with Diddy's video in that sense. But Jesy doing them just automatically puts it in a completely different situation because she is coming from the privileged. So we're not blind to it. We do see it. As far as, anything else that was in the video, again, as far as we can see, nothing has changed. Nothing before Boys came out and after Boys came out is any different. Jesy has had an overtanning problem. Jesy uses lip fillers. She overlines her lips with like lip liner and lipstick. She's looked racially ambiguous for a while. There's nothing new about any of that. So it happening in boys doesn't change anything for us.
Yeah, we were supporting her in Little Mix with these problems still happening, so her going solo doesn't change much for us just now that she's by herself. This was all a problem for a very long time, and so her just being on her own doesn't influence any new decisions, really, for us at least.
Yeah, and I think also, I think there are some people who think like, well, if you've known it's a problem the whole time, like, why did you support her in Little Mix? And the answer is that the issues around Jesy being racially ambiguous, I mean, it's a couple different things. I don't want to get into it, obviously, for the reasons we've already told you guys. But ultimately, all you guys kind of need to know is that I, to the best of my ability to be able to tell, don't think that she is intentionally trying to look like another race or to look racially ambiguous. I think she does look racially ambiguous. I don't think it is intentional. I think there are other motivations around the changes to her appearance that have nothing to do with these problematic issues. I don't want to get into them. And, that's just my choice. I need to make a decision based on the things that I see. That is one of the things that I see is I don't think that they're connected. It doesn't change the problematicness of Jesy looking racially ambiguous. For me personally, if she's not intentionally doing it and there's not maliciousness behind it, then I'm not here to police individual people's racial ambiguity. I think the issue around Jesy looking racially ambiguous and being in the music industry in Little Mix and out of Little Mix is a far, far bigger issue around a conversation about the way that society and the industry treats people of color and Black people and the way that we market them and the way that we push them and advertise them and the way we talk about them and the opportunities that we give them. And that's a much, much bigger issue. And I think personally, that's the real issue. I think that if Jesy, stops lip fillers, stops over tanning, yeah, she'll look less racially ambiguous. I don't think it solves that actual problem. Does that mean I think she shouldn't do it? No, I think she should. Ultimately, if I'm going to, fight as an ally for something, I want to fight the problem. I don't want to fight something that ultimately isn't really going to do anyone any good. Like, that doesn't actually help Black people or people of color. That doesn't help musicians or singers in that industry trying to succeed and do well for me to police one person's racial ambiguity. I just think like that doesn't actually help. So it's not worth me doing when I could spend my time trying to battle the problem in a way that I think will actually be effective. And yes, that has been part of my personal education journey, is how to do that. I suggest that anyone else also look into that. That's kind of that reasoning. Again, I'm trying not to like get into big discussions about this, guys, because that's really not the point of this. It's really just more to give you guys of like where we're at and, kind of like how and why. And that's like kind of it. We're really not trying to, this is not a TED talk. For us, nothing really changed. So the last time we addressed this, everything we said there still applies. I understand that for some people, things have changed, but for us, it hasn't.
Yeah.
And so that's, we just have to go based off what's right for us.
Also, us saying that we still support Jesy doesn't mean that we're choosing Jessy's side and immediately hate on the other three. I just want to point that out because I can see those comments happening. We're not choosing a side. We're not turning our back on the other three. We're just choosing to also support her in the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we absolutely still support the trio. We are not in any way picking sides or saying that Jesy is right, or that like she's better, or that like, I don't know, whatever you want to come up with, that I'm sure is going to get hurled at us. We're not pitting them against each other.
Yeah, it seems like in the fandom you have to choose a side now when you really don't need to. Like if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Yeah, I think there is kind of this like weird toxicity where people won't allow you to do both. And I think that that's like just adding to more of the toxic culture that we really don't need more added to. Um, but yeah, we're not picking. Just because we've decided to continue this edition of the podcast doesn't mean that we're not going to support the trio. It doesn't mean we're not going to support their solo projects. It means absolutely none of that. We still love the trio.
Yeah, like kind of what we said before, nothing has changed since the last time we talked about this. And that goes for the trio too.
Absolutely.
I mean, things have changed obviously for them, but not for us.
Right. Like not our like outlook of how we want to like support them.
Yeah.
I think kind of the last thing we can say, and this is kind of like a defensive thing because we know that this is not popular and we're nervous about it. um, but, you know, I think all we can kind of say is that like we have done the work that we needed to do personally to come to this decision. And the like the reality of it is that we just don't believe in cancel culture. The internet and social media in particular really simplifies things in a way that just isn't sustainable in real life. On the internet, if someone does something problematic, they're canceled and they now have no value as a human being and they're evil. And that's just not how life works.
No.
Imagine if you like went around to the people in your life who were problematic, because I guarantee you they are. Like that every single person I love is problematic. I am problematic. That is just how it is.
It's just how life works.
It's just how life works. We're not perfect. And we're problematic in ways that we don't even know we're problematic in until we find out later. That's how ignorance works.
Yeah.
And so like imagine if you just like went up to someone you loved and they did something problematic and you were just like, "Oh, well, I'm done with you. I'm cutting off. I can't believe you're this horrible person. Like, bye forever." Like, what?
Yeah.
um I mean, obviously in your life when things like that happen between you and people you love, there's like a struggle, right? There's a war within you personally if they've crossed a personal boundary for you, and sometimes you might cut them off and sometimes you might forgive them. There's nothing wrong with that. That does happen to all of us. Um, but like you just don't go around cutting everyone off who does absolutely anything that you know is objectively problematic or that society doesn't like. That's not how it works. I would say like the person I love most in the world is like my sister-in-law, and she's super
Yeah.
problematic. Like, and I've spent literally 8 years of my life on a weekly basis having discussions about it, trying to educate her. And I've made 2 inches of progress in those 8 years. And you know what? I'm pretty proud of those 2 inches. um, she's still really ignorant. But she's also like not a bad person. She means well. She wants to learn. She wants to understand. She has good intentions, but she says dumb shit and she doesn't understand things that I tried to explain to her 1,000 times that guess what? Social media thinks everyone should just get like this. And it's just doesn't work like that in real life.
Yeah.
um, it just doesn't. And all you can kind of do is take those people in your life and hope that, you know, other people in your life will do the same for you and try to educate them where you can when those things come up. That's it. Like all we can do is just try to make each other better and try to educate each other and progress. And to do it in caring, loving ways and to give people the space and the time to do that. You guys don't care about all of this, but it's just more complicated than social media and the internet presents it. And you know, all we can do in our real lives and online is educate ourselves, listen when oppressed groups speak, and try to impart that, and push back against the problematic things that we see in our own real life. Canceling a celebrity online, that does no one any good. It just doesn't serve a purpose. If you want to personally cancel someone, like, they're out of your life, you don't want to support a celebrity or a public figure or a company or, whatever it is, then you do you. That's totally fine. But to like mass scale societally cancel someone doesn't fix the bigger problem.
No.
Like, none of these people are problematic just to be problematic as an individual. They're problematic because it's a bigger problem than just them. And canceling one person or canceling every person who's problematic doesn't fix the problem.
Yeah, it's like attacking part of the problem, but leaving the root of the problem alone. Everything goes back way deeper.
All we can do is have humanity, decency, listen, learn, and make the decisions that we think are right for us. That's it. And so we're just going to continue to do that. You don't have to agree with us, and you don't have to listen to these episodes. You don't have to watch our videos, and you don't have to follow us on social media. And that's all totally fine. I would completely understand that.
Yeah.
This is our decision. It's not a forever decision. We can change our minds. We reserve that right. But for right now, this is where we're at. This is the page that we're on. We wanted to just kind of let you guys know where we were at. And that's kind of all there is to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anything else?
No, we pretty much covered everything.
I'm just like warning you guys, like this comment section of these podcasts, there's not going to be the space for you guys to be toxic. And on that note, as always, please be respectful of us and of the other people in the comment section. And we will see you guys next week.